You know, over the years I've covered some really kick-ass games on this show, but I often run into a similar response, and let's be honest, it's kind of my fault. From the beginning, my aim here on Trash Classics was to give some attention to games that either have been forgotten or don't get the respect I think they deserve. Now, based on the title, you would figure that only games that get a lot of hate would be up for grabs here, but that's not always the case, and I haven't really explained that in any real detail. So keeping that in mind, what happens when Capcom decides that the survival horror genre needs a real kick in the ass? And also, what the hell were they thinking making a game with an emphasis on both tank controls and melee combat? Well, I'm Jared, and this is Trash Classics. Onimusha Warlords is the answer to the age-old question, why are there no Resident Evil games set in the Sengoku period? Well, I guess in the beginning of the PS2 era, Capcom knew they had to make a flashy entrance, but in classic Capcom fashion, didn't feel the need to leave their comfort zone, which you won't hear me complaining about. Well, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. In this feudal Japanese story, you play as Semenosuke, a warrior of the Akechi clan. After getting a letter from his cousin, Princess Yuki, Semenosuke decides to check up on some strange going-ons over at Inibayama Castle. Upon arriving, we find that Princess Yuki has attracted the attention of an underground race of demons who may or may not have brought Nobunaga Oda back from the dead, and another group called the Ogre who want Semenosuke to stop them. The rest of the game is spent trying to free Princess Yuki and uncovering the secret behind the demon clan's sudden appearance.
What is a servant of the Oda clan doing here?
Wait, first we must talk business.
Now, those of you expecting a traditional survival horror experience are in for an absolute treat, as Onimusha is a love letter to its own genre. All the heavy hitters have made an appearance for this PS2 outing, and just off the top of my head, we've got tank controls, exploring a large building made up of pre-rendered backgrounds and static camera angles, holding R1 to engage enemies, and of course, a complete adherence to weapon-based melee combat. Wait, what? That's not supposed to be here. Yeah, so remember how close quarters combat was always a last resort in other survival horror games? Well, now it's damn near your only option, and oddly enough, it works pretty well. Against a single enemy, mashing the attack button works well enough, but against a group, it's a good idea to hold R1, which will lock you onto one enemy and give you a hell of a lot more evasive capabilities. Once locked onto a target, you can circle them and dash forward and backwards. You also have access to attack modifiers in the form of directional inputs. Forward in attack gives you a nice forward jab that covers a good amount of ground, and hitting back yields a semi-useful kick that can knock enemies to the ground, which gives you a chance to finish them off with a quick stab. Now, if this was the extent of Semenosuke's combat experience, this game would be almost unplayable, as your attacks don't always interrupt your enemies. Luckily, Capcom threw in a block button, which fits into combat rather flawlessly. Now, don't get me wrong, these controls are nowhere near intuitive, but after a little bit of time, you'll find the combat tends to flow really well. The addition of counter kills, limited use projectiles, and some other small tweaks have combat feeling really satisfying, at least most of the time. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie to you, combat is by no means perfect. I mean, don't get me started on the fact that I can block a huge sword while turned around, but an arrow from behind is somehow a guaranteed hit. So other than a few small hiccups, Capcom has managed to somehow make survival horror combat fun and satisfying, which is good because demons don't stay dead once you've cleared an area. And since this game is no slouch when it comes to backtracking, you're gonna be fighting a lot. The good news is that there's an actual incentive to keep fighting beyond just staying alive. Killing enemies releases souls, and your gauntlet can absorb them to level up your gear, heal your life, or depending on what version of the game you're playing, fill a meter that makes you invincible. And since we're on the subject of versions, I should say that the footage you're looking at is from the Xbox port of Onimusha, and on top of crisp, detailed graphics, this version also brings a level of difficulty to the table that makes me question my faith in humanity. Seriously, I couldn't get more than 20 minutes into this game without throwing my controller in frustration. Honestly, I was ready to give up until I found that dying 5 times in a row unlocks easy mode, which is a much fairer experience, although I'm still not convinced that it's not just a little harder than the normal difficulty found in the original.
There is no guarantee you will live.
But regardless of which version you play, expect a challenge, and also an engaging enough experience that'll keep you reloading that last save in hopes of getting just a little further. And that goes for all of Onimusha's elements. Everything here is just really satisfying. The story was a fun little romp, and at 4 to 6 hours, this isn't going to be a game that's going to eat up all of your free time. That being said, there are a lot of options for those of you who might want a little more. There are tower climbing endurance sessions that can be found, and the Xbox version has an all-new dungeon type area that yields some kick-ass rewards for players with equal amounts of skill and luck. Add this to the Oni Spirits minigame that's unlocked after a certain amount of secret items are found, and you have yourself one game that doesn't have to end after the credits roll. I can say without a doubt that Onimusha was one experiment that really paid off. The tank control combat may throw you for a loop at first, but you'll be a master in no time. And once you get comfortable, there's enough hidden depth with things like kill counters and green souls that combat stays interesting. Outside of the fast-paced combat, survival horror fans will be in very familiar waters, as Onimusha plays like a love letter to the genre. You'll be collecting keys and solving puzzles, all while backtracking through some kick-ass pre-rendered backgrounds. And if that doesn't make for a game in desperate need of some modern love, well, I don't know what does. So now that the demons have surfaced again, Onimusha Warlords must return to the fight, a seasoned warrior, and a trashed classic. Alright guys, thanks for swinging by for another episode of Trash Classics. Now if you get into survival horror games, maybe check out some of my other videos on them right here. And if you want to see more Onimusha games covered on the show, well let me know in the comments section, because this is one kick-ass series and I would love an excuse to replay it.